Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Keep It Spiritually Simple. I'm your host, Sandra McEllis. And before I introduce my beautiful guest, who's coming back for like round three, and we've got 4, 5, 6, and more lined up. So stay tuned. But in order to catch each episode, I do need you to like, subscribe, and share. It helps the algorithms move this video around to social platforms so other people can view it. And also so you don't miss anything. So, guess what? I've got Dr. Nancy back. Dr. Nancy and I are going to dissect a few more poems from her beautiful book here, Divine Essence of Love. So, yeah. So, we're going to follow along as she reads, dissects, and goes from poems that Spirit brought to me, the numbers of the page, and then I read them and they meant like one thing to me. But when she sort of unpacks a little bit about it, it takes on a whole new meaning that sinks into my DNA. So I hope you can feel it too. So welcome back, Dr. Nancy.
Thank you, Sandy, for having me back on your show, your podcast.
So exciting. So exciting.
It's always so much fun to connect with you.
Yes, absolutely. All right, well, let's get to it. Divine Essence of Love, your spiritual poem book. If anyone has not seen our previous episodes, episode 1 is really introduction to Dr. Nancy. So she talks a little bit about her journey in plant medicine. And then episode 2 is dissecting a few of her poems. So go back and look at those so you can see, sense, and feel the excitement of these poems and how it sort of unfolds for you. And now we're into another segment of looking at some of the poems that came through her from Divine Guidance. All right, let's get to it.
Okay, well, this first poem that you chose for today was on page 25. And again, the page numbers that we're referring to is in the printed book versions. It comes in soft cover and hardcover. If you get an ebook version, then they're available on Amazon and Apple Books. The pages are going to be a little different just because it's a different format. So, okay, this one is called Always More. Always more heights to climb, explore, experience. More love, joy, laughter. Higher level attainments, higher level service, forever expanding. Advancement of consciousness. Expansion is your legacy. Adventures through the cosmos. Riding the infinite sound current. You are the reflection, infinity in physical form. Progression of evolvement, vastness with light. Luminary spheres, immensity, magnitude of life. Love shows way home. Absolute speaks through poetry. Never an end to expansion. You will spend eternity experiencing always more. Okay, so we'll dissect and go through this. There's always more heights to climb, explore, and experience. So your life here in the Earth School, when you cross over and translate out of physical form, you don't just arrive and say, okay, that's it. You're going to float on a cloud forever and do nothing. So you are always expanding. There is a lot more schools and experiences and assignments that will be given to you. So there's always more love, joy, and laughter along the way. Higher level attainments means you're given higher level service assignments. So it's similar to, we have here on the physical plane different levels of grades in the schools. And so, for example, a 12th grader does not look down on a third grader. It knows that one day that third grader will indeed be a 12th in 12th grade. So it's not a judgment, it's just an observation. So it understands this soul is in third grade. There's nothing wrong with being in third grade. That's just where they are at their level of consciousness. And so, similar to the grades system that we have here, it's the same way in spirituality. As we are ascending up to these upper levels, we'll find that when you get to a certain vibrational frequency, you get into university status. And so it's a matter of you have to have a high enough frequency level that you can be able to handle the homework, have the ability to drive the car to get to class, navigate through the bureaucracy of a college system. And so putting a third grader in university, they wouldn't be able to handle that level because their consciousness isn't at a university level yet. So, so then when they're talking about once you get into these higher attainments, you're then given higher level assignments, which is ever expanding. So the next line is advancement of consciousness. Expansion is your legacy. Adventures through the cosmos. Riding the infinite sound current. You are the reflection. Infinity in physical form. So Spirit is saying, I want you to see yourself as your true identity. You are this vastness of light, this luminary sphere of immensity. And the next line is magnitude of life. Love shows way home. And this is a very important line because any path that a soul finds themselves on that is full of judgment, that's not the way home. It needs to be a path of love because it's love is such a high frequency that it burns away all the impurities and therefore raises the vibrational frequency of the ability for the soul to travel homeward. And how it does that is it remembers. It's remembering its true identity, its oneness with source. Absolute speaks through poetry. Never an end to expansion. You will spend eternity experiencing always more. And you don't want it to end. I mean, I don't think it would be a good thing if all of a sudden, okay, you're done. And then you're like, well, now what? You always want to experience all these adventures through the cosmos and all this stuff. So that is the poem, Always More.
Well, it's a beautiful poem. And, for some strange reason, when you got to advancement of the consciousness, expansion in your legacy, adventures through the cosmos, I look at that as like soaring through exploring. You're exploring and soaring through the skies and the earth and all the different elements that are here that you don't necessarily see. But then what was coming to mind was I thought it was adventures through the cortisol surges, because many people then step into the cortisol surges as how they get to the next level, like a lot of pain, victimism, suffering. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
Versus if you can understand some of this um, poetry, I think you can understand that things are supposed to be a little more seamless.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. I don't know why that was coming through for me.
Yes, yes. It's like it's an unearthly love. It's this it's actually it's about remembering. It's almost like the teacher isn't really teaching the student anything new. They're reminding them of who they are. They're reminding you of what you knew prior to incarnating into physical form.
Mhm.
And so this is about remembering and finding the cookie crumbs, the trail of cookie crumbs back home, and that's where it is a path of love because you become more and more and just infatuated with this beloved, this divine essence that's within you, that it's expressing itself through you. Source is having these experiences in physical form through you. So, because you are a piece of source, you are divine, it's source experiencing itself in this dream, in this physical reality.
Beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for unraveling that.
Yes, they all are I know some of these when they came through, I was going, wow, this one's really powerful. It's like when they were
Yeah.
coming in and I'm writing them down and it's interesting that this next one that was chosen is titled A Cry for Meaning. So, and it kind of goes along with what you were just saying. So we're almost like continuing this. This one's located on page 36, and I'll start it. Pain and suffering, illusion of separation, sense of unity comes from the truth. We are all a part of the one infinite essence, permeates all and is all. Visualizing despair in our culture, humanity is ready for mystical journey. Sadness, grief, fear, unhappiness, opportunities for moving to next level. Willingness to search for meaning in life. A situation can cause a person to look at their life asking for meaning. An awakened soul can separate truth from illusion.
Mm.
Okay, so what is the deeper meaning in all this? Well, sometimes we have to go through the pain and suffering, which is part of this illusion of separateness. And that gets into this whole thing of light and darkness and well, where does darkness come from? And if everything is source, then that's a part of source as well. The light and darkness is within us. And so we have this free will. You know, there's destiny and then there's free will. And then you have, because of this free will, for soul doesn't, it's almost, what's the expression? It says there's the short way home and then there's the long way home. And source doesn't, it doesn't matter to source which journey you choose. It's really up to the soul. And actually, some souls learn more playing in darkness than they do in light. They can learn so much more through the challenges and the difficulties and the struggles and the density in this. And the other thing too is, how can you appreciate the light if you've never experienced darkness? And so for many souls that are on the planet right now, they struggle because they've never been in physical form before. And that's just because they've come from some of these very high dimensional levels that they needed to have at least one lifetime and experience being in physical form, being in this darkness, in this density. And so for them, it was harder than they expected. You know, they came into this life and they were warned by their spirit guides. Okay, we got to, you know, we're just gonna, you know, oh yes, yes, I got it, I got it. And they come here and this was more than I bargained for. This is much more than I expected. This is very intense. Yes, it's like Green Beret training. This is a very high level school. Earth School is very high level. I mean, one thing I will say is that when everyone translates, they will all be masters at duality because we've lived in it day in and day out. It's night and day. It's always good versus evil. It's light and darkness. It's male and female. I mean, everything that you experience in the physical dimension is dual in nature. So we become masters of duality, and that can't be experienced in these upper dimensions because there is no darkness. There is no density. There is any of this. In fact, it was really interesting when I was a young kid. My parents were, you know, we talk about these concepts like war. Well, I didn't know what that meant. I knew it was kind of like, because the way my parents talked about it, like, oh, it must be a bad word or it must be something that's negative. And it wasn't until I got older that I understood what war was. I understood what betrayal was. And it's like betrayal is a concept. These words are concept on the other side. And then you incarnate into physical form and it's not until you've been betrayed, then you know the feeling of betrayal. Then you know the deeper meaning of betrayal. But you have to experience that. and you never forget it. Once you've experienced it, it's there. You have a full understanding of that. So the Earth School is very powerful in and yet it's like on the other side, we said, okay, I'm ready to be tested. Okay, I'm ready to go to the Earth School and be tested. And it's kind of like the acid test for a lot of us. And so then we get here and we're like, why is this so hard? Why is this so difficult? Why am I always running into all these problems I have to deal with and these challenges? And it's how we are able to see how we navigate through them, how we handle them. Do we choose the highest path? What is in the best interest of everyone in each situation and not just for our ego? And so as we sort of awaken and become awakened, we see things so completely differently, that we live our life and interact with life so completely differently, that before we realize, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was like that. You see such a difference because your consciousness has expanded to a level that you see at a much higher viewpoint. And so I think the looking at the Earth School from a higher perspective helps people deal with a lot of these situations they find themselves in. I mean, absolutely do what you need to do and do all that you can do in, let's say, a particular situation. And then at that point, you just have to surrender it and ask your spirit guides and source, hey, help me with this. I mean, that's why our spirit guides are here with us. They are with us through our whole life. And a lot of times people don't realize you can call on your spirit guides and say, I got this really difficult situation at work. Can you help me with this? Because they're standing around waiting for you to give the request, because they cannot step in and invade your space or override your decision making. You have free will. So I would definitely put them to use. I mean, they're there standing around waiting, like, are they going to ask us? Or did they? And a lot of people don't know that you can put them to work. They are here. You met with this team many times before you incarnated into physical form, and they are here to guide you. Nobody gets hurled to earth with no support network or support system. And so a lot of times when we hear this inner voice, this inner guidance, it can be your higher self, but it also can be your spirit guides. And part of along the journey, you'll start to feel the difference, the vibrational frequency, this resonance, the difference between when your higher self is stepping in to give you guidance and when maybe it's your spirit guides or an angelic guide, which in the West we would call it a guardian angel, but it's an angelic guide. We all get one of those on our team as well. So that's this whole thing on the first line. It starts right out of the gate with the pain and suffering, the illusion of separateness. The sense of unity comes from the truth. So what is the truth? Well, the truth is that you're always connected. You are a piece of the divine, and you can't be separate from that which you are made of. So that is the truth. And when you start to let that soak in, you think, well, no matter what happens, I am protected. I am connected. The next line is, we are all part of the one infinite essence, permeates all and is all. Visualizing despair in our culture, humanity is ready for mystical journey. Sadness, greed, fear, unhappiness. Now, the mystics will say these are classified as diseases of the mind. The mind, when it comes in, it's pure. It doesn't know anything about greed. That's learned. That's a learned behavior. And so that's why they'll say that even the ego wants to be happy. It doesn't want to be sad. So these are diseases of the mind that we have in our culture, that we've learned to accept that that's just normal part of our physical reality, but it really shouldn't be. Opportunities for moving to the next level, willingness to search for meaning in life. And that's when a soul gets to a level that they're saying, the belief systems are great and they teach us a lot, that there is a higher power beyond our ego. And the spiritual principles within each belief system help people along the journey. But then at some point, they want to go deeper, that's the to learn the deeper meanings and wisdoms that's within each belief system and that existed prior to the belief systems coming to the planet. And this next line is really important because it says a situation can cause a person to look at their life asking for meaning. Now, one of the interesting things on an internal dialogue I had with my spirit guides in regards to this is sometimes your higher self will cause a situation to happen in your life that will literally force you to grow. And we grow either one of two ways, either through pain or through ease. And I always recommend learning through ease other than pain, so it's a matter of souls like this hat, something's got to give here. And it's got, sometimes it has to get so bad that I'm sorry, that soul, your higher self, your soul will cause a situation in your life that your ego will say that it's negative. But what it's doing is it's forcing you to grow and it's forcing you to change. And so it's not always from the adversary or the darkness that some of these situations come from. I mean, how many times have we said in our life where we have a situation we go through and we say, oh, that was the worst thing that could have happened to me. And then 6 months later, you say, oh my gosh, that was the best thing that could have happened to me. So it's all in our perspective. And so, yes, and that's where, so sometimes it's all about the higher viewpoint, really. And at the very last line, it says, an awakened soul can separate truth from illusion. Now, that's pretty deep because we're talking about truth. When we start talking about truth, and people say, I want the truth, I want the truth. Well, there's different two types of truth. There's relative truth and there's absolute truth. Relative truth is this truth is relative to this truth. Night, you understand night relative to day because you know the opposite. And therefore, the illusion is that an awakened soul knows the physical reality, the astral plane, and the mental plane, they're all dual in nature, and therefore they are illusionary. They're not permanent. You get into these upper rarefied dimensions where there is no duality. They call that non-dual in nature or non-duality. And those are the ones where you don't have relative truth. It's absolute truth. It stands on its own. It doesn't need to be understood relative to the opposites.
Very powerful. Now, shall we read it again since you've gone through it and see if it has a
Yes,
different meaning for those who are listening?
absolutely. A cry for meaning, pain and suffering, illusion of separateness, sense of unity comes from the truth. We are all part of the one infinite essence, permeates all and is all. Visualizing despair in our culture, humanity is ready for mystical journey. Sadness, greed, fear, unhappiness, opportunities for moving to the next level, willingness to search for meaning in life. A situation can cause a person to look at their life asking for meaning. An awakened soul can separate truth from illusion.
All I can do is inhale and exhale on that. Whew, doggy. All right. Next is what, 72?
Yes, this one's titled Higher Viewpoint. It kind of segues into a little bit what the first one is. There's like it seems like there's a thread coming through here. I was talking
Mm-hmm.
about the higher viewpoint. Okay. Unawakened souls, unaware of effects on others. Forgive them for their ignorance. Many Earth residents in initial stage of reawakening. They don't understand their patterns are destructive. Only awakened souls know path of peace, love, balance. Walk divine inspirational life. Along spiritual pathway, personal ego gets put aside. replaced with soul leading life. Brings acceptance of human journey. Major exams in Earth School extremely overwhelming. Handle them with fortitude and strength. Keep moving forward, even with small steps. You eventually get to the top of the mountain. Much higher viewpoint changes your perspective. Viewpoint on top of mountain, much superior to the one held while standing at ground level. Aware souls focus their life, service to the divine plan, releasing personal will for divine will. So this one is unawakened souls, unaware of their effects on other. This has also been called doing shadow work, inner work. You can tell when somebody has not done their shadow work because they act out of control. Their behavior affects everyone around them, usually negatively, whether it's on the job and the family and relationships. Usually the ego is just extreme in its amount of just immaturity and selfishness. So that can cause a lot of pain and suffering for those around a very unawakened soul who has not done their shadow work. They're not aware, they're not self-aware that what they're saying to other people can hurt their feelings or their actions or their behaviors. And if they were self-aware, they would definitely, their behavior would be completely different. So they're saying the next line is, forgive them for their ignorance. And it's kind of like how Jesus said on the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. You know, when you're in an unawakened state, you're just not self-aware. You're not aware. And it's not until you become awakened that so much changes in our perspective and having a higher viewpoint and on just everything in life. So many Earth's residents in initial stage of reawakening, they don't understand their patterns are destructive. Only awakened souls know the path of peace, love, balance. Walk divine inspirational life. Along spiritual pathway, personal ego gets put aside, replaced with soul leading life. Brings acceptance of human journey. Now, this one. This is a tough one for a lot of people because, especially when you become awakened, it's a little harder being in the human journey because now you see more, you're aware of more, you see a lot that's going on around you more, and like a person asked me, they said, well, once you become awakened, is it easier because you know more, or is it harder because you know more? And I said, well, it's actually both. It is harder because you know more, but it is easier because you know more. And this whole acceptance, I was on a call, this was during COVID time, and I was on I was in this particular spiritual group, and there was this one person on the call, and they really believed that there was a mistake, and we were cracking up because it was so funny, and we weren't laughing at her, we were just kind of laughing at the situation, how we kind of could relate to what she was saying. She goes, yeah, I really feel there's a mistake that's been made. I should have not been brought to Earth. I should have definitely been brought to Venus, or, Andromeda or some other galaxy. But this is, I shouldn't be here, because she was not obviously accepting her human journey, her human experience here. And she was convinced, that was the funniest part, is she was absolutely convinced that Source had made a mistake, her spirit guides had made a mistake, and they sent her to Earth, and she was not supposed to be here.
That would actually make a good movie. But when you are awakened, you can no longer sit idly by.
Yes.
And so I think that's what makes it a little more difficult for some, or challenging. I don't like to use the word harder, but it makes it, ignorance is wasted on the youth and ignorance is bliss. So they'll say. But when you're awakened, you can no longer sit idly by, because everything has more importance to it. with a much more loving way.
Yes. Yes. In fact, I don't know, once in a while in conversation, I'll say, I can't believe what goes on down here. This would never happen and take place in these upper planes. This is crazy what goes on down here.
I sometimes look up and I go, do you all see the shit I'm shoveling down here? Do you see it? Do I
Well,
look
it
good in
brings up a
this?
good point because sometimes I'll have these conversations with my spirit guides. I'm like, hey, you're not the one down here in physical form. I am. Of course, it's easy for you. You're on the other
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, I'm taking the shovel. I'm going, you come on down. Try it out.
Oh
Don't sit up
gosh.
there in judgment.
Oh
They're like,
gosh.
we're not in judgment, we're just watching you. I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
okay, great.
Well, that's the thing about spirit guides is they've had to have had a number of lifetimes in physical form, so they
Sure.
do know what it's like. So we're like, oh, we know, we warned you.
Yep.
Um, so it says handle, oh, it says, oh, bring, okay, so after brings acceptance of human journey, major exams in Earth School, extremely overwhelming. Handle them with fortitude and strength. Keep moving forward even with small steps. You eventually get to the top of the mountain. Much higher viewpoint changes your perspective. Viewpoint on top of mountain much superior to the one held while standing on the ground. One thing I will say about that one is, okay, you're standing on the cement sidewalk and you're on the ground and you're viewing this skyscraper and you look up and you're like, wow, that's one tall building. But then you get in an airplane and you fly over the same skyscraper and you look down and you go, well, that's kind of small. So it's all in your perspective. But
Mhm.
you notice that when you're in the airplane, I mean, both truths are true. It is true when you're standing on the ground that the building is tall, but it's also a truth that when you're in the airplane, the building is, from that perspective, it's small. So, but you're definitely going to have a much broader, bigger perspective in the airplane viewpoint. You know, being above and at a higher viewpoint. The next lines are aware souls focus their life, service to the divine plan, releasing personal will for divine will. What happens when your ego gets spiritualized and takes pretty much the back seat and comes into a level of service? Your personal will drops off. You just really don't have one anymore because you've surrendered your personal will, which is your ego, to that of the divine will. And then you step into service. It's all about service to the divine plan.
Woo! It is. And let me tell you, sometimes we like to think, we're at the helm of all of it, and we're not. And when you do surrender to the fact that there's so much more and bigger than you that is here, I think once you sort of get down into that space and the place of your physical zone and accept that fact that you're here to do mighty work in a small physical body, that things just look bigger, brighter, and greater than you had ever anticipated them. Because the further you step away from the daily routine of the program in which you've been taught to follow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you step away from that and you look in and you go, wow, there's so much more unknown than I knew was unknown. And you step into that and you surrender to that divine self, and you're walking in what I want to call your cellular self. Your universe becomes your cellular soul self, and life around you changes because of the way you've changed,
Yes.
surrendering to the divine will.
Yes, it's true. It's back to that. As you raise your frequency, situations change. You get
Yeah.
moved, different people come into your life, new opportunities, new things, because you're ready for that. You've mastered these lower other levels, and now you've moved up to from grade 3 to grade 4, or grade 4 to grade 5, and now you have to master grade level 5, and then you can get into the frequency. Once you've raised your frequency to grade level 6, now you'll step into those situations and those environments, and to be able to, those will be the homework and lessons and tests and exams and all of that. So
Yes.
yes.
Beautifully said. Now let's go back and read Higher Viewpoint after you've explained some of this.
Oh, I had already turned my page. Hold on.
Get back there. 72.
All right. Unawakened souls, unaware of effects on others, forgive them for their ignorance. Many Earth residents in initial stages of reawakening. They don't understand their patterns are destructive. Only awakened souls know path of peace, love, balance. Walk divine inspirational life. Along spiritual pathway, personal ego gets put aside, replaced with soul leading life. Brings acceptance of human journey. Major exams in Earth School, extremely overwhelming. Handle them with fortitude and strength. Keep moving forward even with small steps. You eventually get to the top of the mountain. Much higher viewpoint changes your perspective. Viewpoint on top of mountain much superior to the one held while standing at ground level. Aware souls focus their life service to the divine plan, releasing personal will for divine will.
Beautiful. Just beautiful. All
It's
right.
interesting is this next poem that was chosen is called Awakening, because we're talking about awakening and higher viewpoint. This is on page 181. I heard the falcon cry today. This one had lost its way, alone, feeling forgotten, grieving, wailing so loud, crying for help. Then a spiritual power came into the falcon's life. This oneness begins to sing, soaring through the air. A warrior cry came out. New way of living came into view. New state of being, larger awareness. Love emanating outward. More birds started singing louder. New, larger community, symphonies of sounds, filling regions of earth, healing, transforming, awakening.
Now, this one just kind of reminded me of merging with the higher self because we do go into a very alone place at
Yes.
times where we're very solo in this journey. And at that time and during those, if you want to call them heights and depths of whatever it is that you're going through, and then you
Yes.
merge with that higher self, there is an unexplained power and sense that comes over you that you're even stronger in your solo self
Mm,
before you beacon in others around you, either by example or to join you. And that's
great.
when I read it, that's what I thought of.
Yeah, that's I hadn't it's amazing that you saw that in there. And
Mhm.
I think that's one of the beauties in the poems is it it touches us in levels that some people gravitate to certain poems because they resonate with it. It may have been a similar experience or something spirit brings out in the poem to show them, hey, do you realize this time period that you had in your life that you felt I didn't have any friends, I was very alone, but you had that opportunity that you did this level of spiritual soul growth and inner work that was done that wouldn't have happened if you had all this friends and activities and running around and all this stuff and it was put to good use and the other thing too is you don't realize sometimes how far you've advanced until you find yourself in a situation you're like well I would have handled that completely different 10 years ago or 5 years ago and now it slid off my back or it's just so interesting how or somebody will make a comment that may not even be negative it could even be positive of how wow you're just so different now or your life has changed so much or and they see the growth and sometimes you just were trotting along and and then all of a sudden somebody acknowledges that and you hadn't even seen it yourself because you're so busy on the journey, working, working, working. And then you're able to finally, sometimes spirit brings somebody along the line on in your life that is such a great encouragement, and they compliment you on your journey and you work great together. But you wouldn't have been able to have that person or even really appreciate this person or have attract them into your life unless you had gotten to that higher frequency level.
Mhm.
So there's so much there that that comes out of these poems that really touches people so deeply, and that's why they
Yes.
so are connecting to them.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So how would you dissect this one? How would you share information from this one on how you came about writing it and then titling it?
Well, what's interesting was it's like the falcon is becoming awakened, and it's part of its awakening process. And for many years, I lived on the east coast of Florida, and there was this falcon that every day would come to visit me. And and it would land either on the corner of my house or it would land on my mailbox. And even people started talking about it. It's like, do you have a pet falcon or something? This thing, it would sit on the top of my roof right in the center. And then and I even have a picture of this thing. It would sit a lot of times on my mailbox. You just sit there. It was like standing guard, like the sentry or something. And and it would come, and when it sit on the corner of my house, I had really tall windows, so it was looking in the window at me. And I'd say hello. And falcons are very in many cultures, especially in the Middle East, falcons are classified as a very spiritual bird, and they're also in the Egyptian hieroglyphics. We see a lot of falcons in the hieroglyphics, so they are very spiritually significant. And so when I was hearing the falcon cry, sometimes it would cry because I don't know if it was lonely or if it was feeling despair. Because falcons only associate with other falcons. It's like eagles. There's this funny expression. Eagles do not have crows as friends or something along that line. It's like they're different vibrational frequency type birds. Crows always seem like they're complaining um, and but the falcons. And I thought this was very interesting talking about eagles. When an eagle would come into the area, all the birds would go crazy. It was like big news, like, oh wow, we got an eagle in amongst us in our neighborhood here. And so I heard the falcon crying today. This one had lost its way, alone, feeling forgotten, grieving, wailing so loud, crying for help. Then a spiritual power came into the falcon's life. This oneness began to sing. Soaring through the air, a warrior cry came out. And it was almost like the falcon had remembered its power or realized it had power. And so it came from crying and wailing to having a warrior cry. And and so that's that whole awakening process of you have this power within you. You have the power to transform your life. You have the power to be a saint in this lifetime. You have the power and the ability to be a master soul in this lifetime. And I'd gone to over the years so many different spiritual talks and seminars and retreats and conferences. And there was this one that really, and I actually put it in my first book, this experience in Our Divinity Revealed. That's the title of the book. And it's really struck me what was said. He was getting ready to introduce the speaker. But what he said actually is what struck me is that he said, in this lifetime, you too can be a saint. It's not left for the rarefied few. It is attainable in this lifetime to be a master soul. And I just was like, wow, that's interesting, because then it got me thinking about, well, Mother Teresa never said one morning when she woke up and said, well, you know what, today I'm going for sainthood. You know, it was just a part of her journey. It was a part of her, she got her frequency so high at such a level. And as we know, because of through love, that she, it transformed her into sainthood. You know, that's what made her the saint. And so, as we are on this journey, I think it's good for us to see that there are some goals, there are some attainments that we can work towards, that we're not just meandering along this journey down here. And that when we do see that there are some of these attainments, then we have these goals that we can work towards. And these goals actually allow us that ability to raise our frequency and get to these levels. But I just thought that was really interesting, because people always think, oh, well, sainthood's for somebody else. Like, no, you know, even Jesus said, you will do greater things than me. You too can do this. Don't you know ye are all gods? He was quoting Psalms, I think it was like chapter 61. And so what he was saying is, you know, not just the kingdom of heaven is within, you are a divine being. You, that makes you godlike. Your divinity is what makes you godlike, because you are a piece of source. And so yes, it was that, you know, when it let out its warrior cry, that was really that awakening process of, I've got this power within me. A new way of living came into view, a new state of being, larger awareness, love emanating outward. More birds started singing louder, a larger community, symphony of sounds, filling regions of earth, healing, transforming, awakening. And this last paragraph is more about, you know, there are, like you brought up, there are periods of you need this solitary time, you need this quiet time, you need to have that time to have that contemporary life, to have the inner work, to have this connection with the beloved. And then you get to a certain level that now it's time to come outward a little bit, and more birds or more friends come in to your life. And what ends up happening is that ends up being your support network. You end up collaborating and working together, and the journey actually, it's it actually helps us, because in many ways there's growth that takes place inward, but there's also growth that takes place on the outer. So so yes, both are needed on the journey. And some will say, they can mistaken it as, oh, I've reached a spiritual plateau. And in some cases, that can be true, where you find yourself, you look around and you go, well, everybody's still working on their initial stages, and I've kind of gotten those mastered. And that's another reason why people will continue to say, okay, I need to now move to the next level. And that's when they may switch to a teacher that's, usually, you know, when you're on a higher path is when they discuss and bring up the ego, because most paths don't want to go there. They'll placate to the ego because they need the money keep going in the collection plate, because there's mortgage on the church building or the temple building or that type of thing. They have
Mhm.
payroll they have to make, and so they don't want to upset that. But really, when you're on a high enough path that talks about the ego, that's really where now you're talking about surrender and sacrifice, and getting to these deeper, rarefied levels that can get you beyond the ego. And a lot of times, the ego will tell people when they get on these paths to get them off. They'll do certain things to get them off these paths, but the ones that understand what's going on. I think that's where sometimes it's really good to have a teacher that, hey, they've been through these traps, they've been on this path before, they know what awaits them. And so it kind of helps them along this journey, makes it much more easier.
Yeah, and you know, also when I was reading this one about love emanating outward, um, I started thinking about many people who go outside to find their frequency. So, for example, they'll run to church or to a retreat or to this or that to either replenish or to attach to a vibration so they can feel filled up, right? They go outward to get it, right? Versus an inward way of being. And I know that the sometimes the silent path of merging with your higher self and having that solo time, I have learned that I've got to find that frequency and that vibration by myself. And that in and of itself allowed me to find a much bigger inner power. So I didn't need to go to this place to achieve this or feel this way. I didn't need to go over here to attach to that vibrational frequency. It's how could I be alone and have the inward music vibrate through me without having any exterior influence on that, and then take that out on my path. And so I don't know why, but when I was reading that, because I felt like it needed to generate from inside versus to go outside and outside in, but many people go from outside to bring it in. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
it does.
And
It does.
so that's what was coming up, just in my own reading of that. And I was like, oh, yeah, because a lot of people do that. I've had many people say, oh, I only go to church because I feel good afterwards, right? Or I only go do that. Or I feel really depleted. I'm going to go to the spa for a day. Or I feel really, I need a vacation to get away from my life, right? So they can tap into something else outside of them. But really, the learned mastery is, can you create that by yourself where you are in that moment and take that everywhere you go? And I live by that every single freaking day, no matter what tsunami of energetic change or climate or barometer that someone else says is happening out there. My happy meter is loaded and locked and doesn't change due to situations or circumstances. And I just found that when I read that, all that kind of flooded through me.
That what you're saying reminds me of a spiritual truth that talks about I'm okay either way. If I get invited to this party and I go, I'm okay. But if I don't go to the party, I'm okay. I'm okay either way. I'm okay whether I go to the party or I don't go to the party. I'm okay either way.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it. Well, would you mind just going ahead and just reading this before we close out, since we've
of
kind of
course.
like shared some, different viewpoints on it, and see if people can see, sense, and feel it a little differently this time.
Okay. Awakening. I heard the falcon crying today. This one had lost its way, alone, feeling forgotten, grieving, wailing so loud, crying for help. Then a spiritual power came into the falcon's life. This oneness began to sing, soaring through the air. A warrior cry came out. A new way of living came into view, new state of being, larger awareness, love emanating outward. More birds started singing louder. A new, larger community, symphonies of sound, filling regions of earth, healing, transforming, awakening.
One powerful book, my friends. If you all can't see this, Divine Essence of Love. Okay, this is a spiritual poem book written by Dr. Nancy Clark. It's amazing. Get it on Amazon. Go to her website. You can figure out a lot of things. That will be in our description. Well, this has been another very powerful episode that leaves people with food for thought and nourishment for the soul, is what I just heard. So, and that makes total sense, right? Food for thought, nourishment for the soul. Wow, I got to write that down. I know I've said it multiple times in my past, but that just came through like, damn, I feel like I just heard that for the first time. Um, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the guest today?
Oh, I'm just so grateful for you having me on your podcast. I look forward to us getting together and talking about, more of the spiritual poems or some of the content that's in my other books. And I enjoy our time together. It's almost like we're sitting in the living room and we're just having this conversation, and and a lot of times we really don't even know where it's going. I mean, sometimes it seems disjointed, but there's probably somebody in the audience that goes, "Oh, I really needed to hear that today." And we thought it came out of left field, but it was really meant for someone to hear something along those lines. And so, yes, it's kind of we just surrender to what's meant to come out, what Spirit wants us to share and discuss, and that's part of what makes it exciting. It's not scripted at all. It just happens.
Exactly. And I think that we deliver different things for different spiritual appetites, you know?
Yes.
Um, and if one person hears something magnificent and another person hears something about, I need to think about that one. It's all about expansion, and it's all about bringing you to your heart. And it's all about keeping it simple. So having it non-rehearsed allows spirit to step in and guide versus a personal egoic agenda. And that is how I like to keep it here at Keep It Spiritually Simple. And I am so glad that guests like Dr. Nancy Clark can bounce with me on that, because she bounces right back. We get along great, and she's going to be on for more episodes. In the meantime, where can people find you, Dr. Nancy?
My website is nancyclarkphd.com.
Okay, and then she's got a new YouTube channel out where she's
Yes.
posting a lot of things about this poetry and putting it out there, as she said in the beginning, to music and background and her voice and so on. So if you want to explore that, please tune into her YouTube channel, which is called what?
Inner Majesty.
Okay, and it's new, so you may have a little hard time finding it at first. Just give her time to load up more videos, and then it'll be easy to pop up. If I have the link, I'll put it in the description, as I will her website. In the meantime, also, if you get the Divine Essence of Love book and you would like for Dr. Nancy to maybe dissect or go into a little more insight about a particular poem, put the number of it in the question you may have in the comment section. And maybe on the next episode, we can take a look at that a little bit closer. And whatever question you have is going to be a question someone else has too. It's just who's going to have the courage to step up and say, hey, I have a question, because all questions are needed to be heard. The answers are needed to be heard. All questions are important, because you're
Yes.
asking them on behalf of maybe someone else who didn't think about it or didn't know how to ask. And we're going to help everybody awaken that fifth chakra and align the entire body. And that's what this show is all about. So, Dr. Nancy, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
And everybody, thanks for tuning in. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, and we'll see you on the next Keep It Spiritually Simple. Bye, everybody.
Bye.